This episode is about minutes 91 through 95 of The Empire Strikes Back with James Waterman and Justin Scheid. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, but you can call me Xanthi, and today is all about minutes 91 through 95 of Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And joining me is my friends from the Band Batch, James Waterman, Justin Scheid, fan favorites.
Fan favorites.
Now you
love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
We start. To be here. Yeah, I'm always happy to have you. Even though we already do talk about the shows, but you know, it's nice to talk about The Empire Strikes Back. That's for sure.
Always.
Definitely.
Always. Legendary.
And this set of minutes begins with C-3PO in a compromising position. And also throughout these minutes, we have a lot of like brief, I don't know how to put this. We have a lot of brief, callbacks is the wrong word, little brief glimpses into tiny bits of the Star Wars universe that since The Empire Strikes Back has come out have been expanded a lot.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting rewatching these minutes, like especially after we've been talking about the shows for so long. Yeah, there are a few things that are that remind me of Book of Boba Fett, Andor, stuff like that.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Especially with it depending on which version of this film you first watched or grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one I had as a kid on VHS was the first special edition. So it wasn't quite when the prequels had come out, kind of a thing, but it was still the first pass at the revisionary continuity kind of things that was about to happen, you know?
Are you talking about Tamora Morrison's voice doing Boba Fett?
Definitely. I mean, okay. At least in these minutes, that's like the big standout is for. But I mean, we'll get there. We'll get there. And We'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I'm
One
sure.
One of those retroactive impossibilities that exist in the in the new versions. Yeah, I had the VHS pre special edition.
Really?
Yeah, and then I got the special edition, and unfortunately, all I have left that my parents didn't get rid of is a special edition.
Oh,
they got rid of. They're like, oh, but you already had the trilogy. I'm like, it's not the same. It's not.
You had the version of The Empire Strikes Back with the old Emperor.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh.
On VHS. Yeah. And so unfortunately. That is lost somewhere. Probably at somebody's house in upstate New York. They got it during a garage sale or something. And so when you had mentioned callbacks, Xanthi, were you talking like specifically like just auditory or like in both in character content and visually and
yeah, both. And also, callbacks was absolutely the wrong word. It was just sort of like little elements that have been expanded upon. One being obviously Boba Fett, and the other being Han's interrogation / torture.
And
interrogation,
which we'll get to it. But I also just like visual stuff. Like I feel like the Cloud City police were like definitely an inspiration for like the police officers on Canto Bight, and also in other media, just like the design that they have, like they're just in the background, and kind of there. It's kind of interesting. I feel like I'm seeing the Canto Bight police officers. I remember seeing them and being like, that doesn't look very Star Warsy. What's funny is that like watching this scene, I'm like, oh, those kind of look like those Canto Bight police officers. I'm like, and that's an Empire. So there's little things in Empire, I think, that plant some of the aesthetic seeds for that. I think that's maybe one way to put it is like there's like aesthetic choices made an empire that have resonated and echoed throughout the Star Wars universe for years and years and years to come. And you can find a lot of inspiration from this film in expanded content for sure. More so than A New Hope, I'd say.
Yeah, minus just the concept of Star Wars. But yeah.
Yeah, obviously. But I just mean some of the aesthetic
being the
choices,
second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
The second one.
Honestly, there's something about the very futuristic looking Cloud City too that I feel is echoed in more of the newer content. And it might just be because of the glitzy, not glitziness. It might just be that it looks fresh, and a lot of it has been like added after the original came out, I guess. But it just looks very, I don't know, very clean and not like a not like, I mean, okay, the carbon freezing chamber, which we will get to, is a different thing, but just like the really overly clean looking place. I feel like we've seen.
Yeah.
Totally. And if you think about it, we hadn't really the cleanest we've seen Star Wars up until this point, pretending like nothing else had existed at this point, is like the Death Star and like the orderliness of the Empire and that kind of cold gray and black and blue look kind of a thing. And then what are the other places we've been to? Tatooine,
Right.
Hoth, sand, and ice, and kind of and to see like what the rest of the universe looks like or the galaxy looks like for Star Wars is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing with Cloud City is because it's a quote unquote, it's like a neutral place. It's neither like a rebellion location, rebel location, nor an Imperial one. So the design aesthetic of Cloud City feels more like a choice than like this is just what the style guide says for the Empire, or
Right.
or whatever. Like it kind of goes with like everything about Lando feels more as it feels like overtly more of an aesthetic choice than many of the other characters that we've seen up until this point.
And there's also an element of like citizens living life, quote unquote, normally outside of this rebellion kind of and Galactic Civil War. Like Tatooine really feels like it's like on the outskirts and they're just like doing their own thing and it's like almost like off the grid, right? And it's less mainstream than Cloud City. And then all the other locations that we've seen so far seem like directly implicated in the rebellion, like Yavin and Hoth. And Dagobah is kind of like a Tatooine vibe, like completely off the map. The Jedi, Yoda's hiding out there. But Cloud City feels like it interacts with the Empire, but it like has it's just people living their lives normally. They have a police force. They have like citizens walking around. It feels like you're seeing citizens of the galaxy living under the Empire. You know what I mean? In a mainstream way. As opposed to the other locations that feel like they're either like deliberately off the mainstream and off the beaten path, or they're like specific hiding covert areas, that are part of this like galactic struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's start listening to the minutes. And it's kind of abrupt.
Oh my. Tammy's all right. I didn't mean to intrude. Please don't get up.
Oh my God, I love that part.
It's amazing sound design. Amazing.
Right.
It's like one of those. It's definitely one of my favorite like sound clips from this film. Like I can't really do it, but oh my God.
Yeah, it's like speeding up. It's like speeding up and slowing down his voice in a way in these like very like abrupt clips rather than like ooh, like a smooth like knob kind of a thing.
And it sounds like it sounds like changing channels on him. Especially when
like
he starts
languages too.
Yeah, it feels like they're cycling through his primary dialect, right? It's like setting your Siri, it's like setting your iPhone to like a different language, right?
But they're like cycling through the different modes, like the modes are on a dial or something.
Right. I love
And if
how it's one of these other like design things. It's like this is like in one of the most in like if the C-3PO existed in our world, it would be like a marvel of AI technology. But there's like not a digital interface on him. You know what I mean? Like it's like everything everything is still like dialed with like
circuits
wrenches in the back of him. You know what I mean? It's it's like if they made Chat GPT, but the only way they can make it work is like in a Tamagotchi kind of thing or something. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Or some other equivalency to like some weird, mismatch of technology priorities. It's pretty funny.
Well, let me just keep playing for a couple more seconds.
Here, when in danger, I must tell the others. Oh no, I've been shot!
Wait, we missed the stormtroopers part.
Stormtroopers. Here, when in danger, I must tell the others. Oh no, I've been shot!
Yeah, it's just interesting thinking like what perhaps like these phrases are in his memory bank, or he's said them before, or
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like he's catching back up. It's everything's
Right.
coming back online. I mean, he got like obliterated. I'm amazed at the fact that Chewbacca can put his head back on backwards and get all of that to come out. You know what I mean? It's having worked with like electronics and like the tiniest little thing is wrong. Nothing works.
I don't know if this means that like Chewbacca is just really good at, like, we know that he's good at fixing stuff for sure, but I guess I guess how different could fixing a droid be than fixing an X-Wing or the Falcon or just a ship?
Right.
Well,
Not
apparently
very different in the
these-
Star Wars world, apparently.
The skills transfer.
Apparently,
I mean-
droid fixing is just a pastime for everybody in the Star Wars world.
That is true. I mean, I am a little bit unclear of like what can you do to a droid? Like, what is fatal? What separates L3's fate from 3PO? I don't know. It is kind of unclear in Star Wars.
No.
What makes
Plot.
an IG-88
Plot.
die
It's
or not?
just plot.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's 3PO somehow lives through that, but so he gets blasted by stormtroopers, right? That's what's going on
At some point in his memory.
at some point.
Yeah, earlier, right? He like walks in through a door and they just shoot him, but we don't know it's the stormtroopers yet.
I remember as a kid being confused and thinking that he got blasted by the Cloud City workers.
Oh, okay.
But
They
that
would
was just
never.
me as a- but weren't they the ones like throwing him around that like throwing his body parts around that like steam room or
Yeah,
whatever? it
yeah,
was?
totally. No, I agree.
I remember
with you,
just
Jason.
assuming it was them that did it when I was a kid because I just like couldn't understand,
I always forget it too. I watched the whole movie last night just for fun and just to get the context of it all again. And I remember hitting that scene and going, "Oh yeah, he gets shot by who?" But what do we ever know this answer? Is this like one of these like, and then this scene happens and he's like, "Oh, stormtroopers!" Like, "Oh,
Yes,
this is the reveal after the reveal that." It was revealed that he
and that he
revealed it.
could have warned. That's like what the implication is. He
Yeah,
could have warned
yeah.
everybody about it, right?
Oh, so you
Exactly.
feel like these aren't just random things he's saying. You feel like he's literally catching up on what happened when he wasn't.
What just happened before he got shot?
Oh, I never even considered that. I thought it was just gibberish.
No, he could have
I think that's
warned
what the
them.
implication is that he got shot by stormtroopers, and this is what he was trying to say, but the blasters must have fried his thing. So once they reconnected it, he was actually able to say what he was trying to say.
It's like
in
when a
those last
printer
moments.
Yeah.
doesn't print and then it
Yes.
starts working again.
Yes.
It prints like 15 jobs. And you're
Yes.
like,
Yeah, exactly.
That's so. That's a perfect
Yep.
analogy.
so when he says, "I'm terribly sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. Please don't get up." Who's he talking about? Is he talking?
it's
Oh,
probably
the droid.
Yeah, so
stormtroopers
he
he's seeing.
sees somebody. Oh, sorry to interrupt, and then
And then
Oh.
they zap 'em.
he realizes what it is.
Oh, okay.
Are you having a mind blown?
A little bit because I
right
just
now?
never. A little bit because I
It's
just thought it was a funny
Yeah.
random thing that he was saying. And how funny. I mean, of course, in his memory, he's been shot at by stormtroopers many times, so it didn't
Right.
register.
okay. Yeah, I can see that. But I think it's directly related.
Yeah, I think that's
to him
definitely-
just
definitely
getting
the-
shot.
I mean, I think you're right. Yeah. So the music is this little sweet little string prelude sounding thing. So it's dainty sounding.
Yeah, it doesn't do much, and it's funny that it's very kind of not just calm, but cozy.
It
in
is
a way.
cozy.
It's like
Yeah.
Chewbacca's sitting down and not in prison, about to assemble a hobby droid, kind of a thing, It's not as dire of consequences happening. And then he says, right where we stopped, he's like, "I've been shot," and then we get the boom, but that's just a transitional roll screen wipe
Right.
thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
That
I
flute,
feel like
those flute lines are really beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like the whole well, let's play it again. Oh, I love that major second.
Terribly sorry. I didn't mean to intrude.
And his ooh, is kind of in time. It's just so lovely.
It is
right,
lovely.
and right as 3PO turns on, there's that kind of the flute line comes in, and this little bubbly almost electronics or whatever kind of magically turning on.
Yeah, Justin, you're the resident. I'm getting robot voice now. You're the resident tech person. Or don't worry, I'm fixing it. Just 1 second. Okay. You're the resident person who works with circuit stuff more than we do, for sure. And
You're the mayor of Circuit City, if you
is
will.
any part
Major-
of that
major- Circuit
realistic to working with electronics?
Which part? The
The
C-3PO
way,
coming back up?
yeah, the way that he kind of ramps up like that and quickly switches between a bunch of different things.
Possibly, if he's glitching out. I mean, that's why I was laughing earlier, because he put his head on backwards, but he can still get him connected. And then
Yeah.
the other thing is, having again watched this movie, I love how what we use is a soldering wand kind of a thing. You put the solder on. They just have this spark thing.
Yeah.
They just touch to random places and it goes pss, pss, pss. I'm like, what are you fixing? What are you doing? It's a great effect, but it's one of those I want to know the laws behind this.
Yeah.
And how this works, and just sparking things, and then they kind of turn on and work. But it actually, what is cool though, is that as Chewbacca is fixing it, just the practical effect of it all, to see the lights on C-3PO's would-be back now chest, and this because his head has been turned around, actually turn on and off, and as a electronic puppet, so to speak, kind of thing, is pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm
really cool.
still very much. I'm still very much I would rather have Puppet Yoda, than any Yoda. I love practical effects like that.
And all throughout the remaining sequences on Cloud City with C-3PO, that puppetry is amazing, because he's basically a puppet for the rest of the movie, right? All outside of the final scene of Empire, right? And it's so convincing for 80, is it? Empire?
Yeah, 1980.
1980. Yeah, pretty amazing that he resembles the movements of Anthony Daniels so well. Or maybe that's a testament to Anthony Daniels being able to be so robotic in his movements.
I
And
feel
his
like
head-
the voice really helps too, to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really cool.
The sparks there kind of are similar to when we later see Han Solo get sparked. Yeah. Okay. Let us continue listening. Oh, we're hearing the droids motif, by the way.
Please don't get up. That's our secret. Stormtroopers.
So can you break that down? That's a droid motif, huh?
Yeah, the dee-dee-dee-dee-dee thing.
Oh, cool. Well, is that from back in A New Hope or?
No, it's actually only in Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
where does it? Where do we hear it the first time in Empire?
Okay, it would have been earlier in the movie, and it's come up a lot in this movie. So I'm trying to think what the very first time is. Let's see. This is a time for listeners to guess before I say the answer. Like right at the beginning.
My
like
guess would be
on
at
Hoth,
Echo
for
Base,
sure.
because that's where they
Yeah.
would be, like when they're talking to each other,
Echo.
right?
I feel like it appears in Dagobah too, right?
Oh, tons in Dagobah. Yeah.
With R2D2
R2?
and the mysterious
Cool.
swamp
Yeah, but like
sound.
very early in the movie, definitely on Hoth, at the base, we definitely hear it. I don't know why it wasn't used throughout the rest of the films. I find that a little strange, honestly, because the droids have been in all the films. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit of a weird choice, or just a forgetfulness, which is probably the reason. It's probably not anything deep, but yeah. So there we go. Okay.
The others. Oh no! I've been shot!
Bring us in some timpani.
Timpani, some
Yeah.
Darth
Only
Vader theme.
percussion we'll be talking
Imperial
about today.
March.
Oh, so sad.
And you brought an entire timpani just for
Just for that.
just for this. No. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
I forgot. Do you
Just
have a
haven't.
timpani?
I don't have any. I don't have a timpano.
Right.
Nor
right.
do
We've
I
discussed
have
this.
timpani.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't. Does anybody want to give me a timpani? That's listening,
timpano?
Please.
Maybe one timpani. A timpano.
Would you accept one, or do you need a pair?
I would accept one, but I would prefer a pair.
Fair enough. So we briefly have the Imperial March.
1-5, not just
Right. Or it could just be
there's,
one.
There's some other times in Star Wars where timpani are a transitional element that brings us into some spooky people. And one of those moments is, I believe, in A New Hope, where we have that transition, that classic transition that was actually mirrored recently in Andor, with the door closing and the footsteps on the plank, from
Right.
the door closing from Leia's cell. We get some drumming going on in that march there.
When did we hear that in Andor?
Well, I don't know if we heard it musically in Andor, but we saw
okay,
the
okay.
visual of the door.
Oh, okay.
So that scene in A New Hope has also a role into. There's lots of times where the timpani brings us into the march. Brings us into the Imperial March, or it brings us in. And because Star Wars loves its transitions, it's a nice instrument to bridge that gap, right? So
I was gonna say that's interesting. Like again, with Star Wars loving its transitions and just movie scores needing to do those transitions, it's funny how like the timpani will bring us into like a dark, menacing kind of place. It's like a doom roll as we switch.
It is.
Whereas in like
It
a
is.
string transition might be mysterious as the strings are like we're knowing, or then maybe like a harp going do 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 do. We're like transitioning to something like to space or underwater. It's funny how different things will have their rolls. Ha.
Ha,
they're
ha.
they're roll they're rolls. Rolls of rolls. How do you work this sentence here? Rolls
Different
of
roles will have their roles.
Different roles will have their own unique roles. Exactly.
Yeah, that is a good. It's interesting in the context of this being an all acoustic cue, I guess. I mean, even though there's synth in this score in general, this is purely orchestral right here. And in
Did you say there are synths in this score?
in The Empire Strikes Back, there
Really?
is.
Where?
When the Emperor is speaking in the Magic Cave, a couple other places, also on another place in Cloud City. I didn't know until recently.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Wow.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
If it was trivia night, I wouldn't have gotten that right. For sure. Wow.
Yeah, it's the same
Williams
ARP
likes the
synthesizer used for R2, actually.
Oh, I guess yeah. For sound design, I obviously, but I didn't know there was any in the score. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting.
It's kind of, it's, now that I hear it for sure. But yeah, before I just thought it was really interesting, like just cool sounding woodwinds or something. I don't know. Because it's not like Andor-y synth. It's not like,
Right.
it's not, yeah, it's not what you would necessarily think of first when you think of a synth. I mean, obviously it depends on the person, but I don't think it's what you personally and me personally think of when we think synth music.
For sure.
Because it's really just used as like an extra instrument. It's not like used as the entire pad or like an arpeggiator or just like, it's really sparingly used.
Cool.
Yeah. And so I guess what I was attempting to say is that transitional material in non-orchestral scores, or at least not purely orchestral scores, is often given to either synths or just like those electronic, like risers, or just like a sub bass or something like.
Right.
Yeah.
Or sound design itself.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. The sound design will take care of it. A ship passing by, a car passing by, something, passing usually. Or just bringing in the sound of one world into another for just a moment to get you like.
Right.
Andor would do that a lot. Bring the sound in from the scene you're about to see into the scene that you're currently watching and make that the transitionary material.
Yeah, so it's like this is very old school transitions. I mean, it's kind of good reminders of how to do them as a composer,
Yeah.
like how to use different instruments to achieve that effect. Because, yeah, the timpani does have that effect very often, probably because it's so low. And you can feel the low, I don't know, you can feel it. It's not too in your face unless you make it loud. You can rumble it in. I don't know, the timpani has such a big dynamic range. You can really like roll it in like thunder. You can really get soft and then you can get super loud.
Right. Kind of like if you.
It's also very different timbral wise, right? So
Yeah.
like, as opposed to bringing in another string instrument or the wind instrument, if you're trying to make a gap somewhere, it'll stick out because it'll be a timbre that's vastly different from everything else that you're hearing, right? So if you've got string
Yeah.
pads,
But even as
if you want to bring in
a percussion instrument, yeah, even like as a percussion instrument, it has a different timbre. Like I'm imagining this if you did this with like a concert bass drum roll, like one of those big bass drums that are like on the rubber bands almost, the bungee cords, so that they can resonate and stuff. That would be different than just using the timpani. I mean, I know they're all technically pitched in some kind of way, but the timpani is like so ingrained with like the Western music scale as being like the pitched percussion versus a bass drum, which generally wouldn't be.
Well, you
wouldn't
can offer.
be
That's the
considered
thing about
pitched,
timpani. Yeah, that's the thing about timpani is you can offer
Yeah.
tonal information in addition to textural information, right? So
Totally.
So you can bring in a good old 5/1 with timpani that you really can't with with a set of concert toms, right?
Right. And you mean 5-1
or at
dominant
least-
tonic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dome, bum,
Yeah.
So all day. All day.
So even though the timpani is very timbrally different, I would also say that it is pretty timbrally. It's also blendy. It also blends really well. So it's different, but not so different that it calls too much attention to itself. Because I think basses often will be present during transitions as well, because they're, the low pitch of a bass can kind of be a little bit out of the way, but also a timpani is obviously has more of an attack than a bass, but it also has, I don't know, the envelope of like a timpani hit. It's not as incisive as the other common orchestral drums, percussion instruments that I can think of. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like it kind of rings out. It can be like,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, timpani.
It's got a longer decay. Is that what you mean? Than
Probably. Yeah, it does have a longer decay.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely more so than snare drum. Not necessarily more so than bass drum. But again, I think the biggest thing about timpani is that it has a focused pitch to it, right?
Yeah, I think that's
so you
true.
don't have this kind of splatter of overtones that happen when you're hitting other drums, or cymbals for that matter, and tam tams, right? You really just get the boom that goes out, right? And so it is it really is like oftentimes timpani, when used in like classical scores, will be combined with the brass to create like the pointed accent to the brass's attacks, right? So they're almost considered one instrument together when they're playing together. And that's kind of the strategy that we use as timpanists, like listen to the brass and try to be their articulation.
Oh,
right?
interesting.
We're kind of like we are the attack for that. It's almost like a combined sound. It's like combining synth sounds, right?
Yeah.
It's that's kind of what the approach is. Whenever, especially like really early classical, where even the brass is limited to the notes that they were able to use, right? Because a lot of times there wasn't as many valves, or if any valves at all, in some of like early like Haydn or anything like that.
Right.
We're often playing right there with the brass, low brass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of just trying to blend as much as we can with them. So oftentimes it's serving as that articulate sound as part of the low end of the orchestra.
I never thought of it like that. That makes sense, though. I'm going to be listening for that now, for when those instruments are doubled. The French horn is another interesting instrument that is really, sometimes it goes along for the ride with the brass section, and sometimes it really goes along for the ride with the woodwind section. I feel like it really does both.
Yeah.
Sometimes they consider a French horn a wood instrument, which is really
Oh, what the woodwind quintet has a French horn in it. So
exactly. It's so funny. It's so interesting. It's like, and sometimes why, right? And sometimes French horns.
Sometimes why?
Yeah, like with the vowels, right? It's like
A-E-I-O-U,
like French horn,
and sometimes
A-E-I-O-U, and sometimes Y. It's like clarinet, oboe, bassoon, and sometimes French horn.
That's funny. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well done, James. That was a good joke.
Xanthi has spoken. Good job. Has decreed it.
So this is Han Solo.
Oof.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that.
No, I
It's a
honestly
good scream.
think
Shout
that
out for a
what
good
follows,
scream, you know?
Wait,
what follows this scene is the funniest line in the movie, actually.
It is
Yeah.
really funny.
There is a line that's coming up after this scene that I truly believe is, I think, the funniest thing in the movie.
I know what you're
I'm
going to
not-
say, so I won't spoil it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
well, yeah, it's a good one.
You'll hear how the sound changes when we cut to Lando and Boba Fett and Lobot and a stormtrooper standing outside of the door. We can hear his screams coming from, through the wall, through the door. I have to say, I did not realize the extent to which Lobot is actually in many of these scenes. Just
Yeah.
there. I mean, I knew
a
that he
He's
presence.
was.
just there.
I just didn't know he was in so many. I thought he was just sort of seen once or something. I don't know. I forgot that he was just constantly there. Okay, let's continue listening.
Lord Vader.
You may take Captain Solo to Jabba the Hutt after I have Skywalker.
He's no good to me dead.
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Good old Tem
Dude,
coming in.
so
Years later.
So yeah, right. Years later in a film, he's yeah. Isn't it crazy that you could think that Tamara Morrison could have been watching this movie as a kid, and then now is in this movie?
Now is in the
Attractively.
same movie.
Oh, yeah.
is in the movie.
Yeah, very
Also,
very
just
little, very rarely as an actor do you get to actually watch a movie and be like, someday I'm gonna be in that movie.
In that movie.
in that movie
Not any movie.
specifically.
I don't want to be in any movie. I want to be in that
I want to
one.
be in that movie that was already made.
So having covered Book of Boba Fett, I
Yeah.
got it with you all and going on that wonderful joyride of an adventure of that show, which will just be solidified within me.
That wonderful,
Especially
Rancor
our
ride, the
sessions.
show.
It's fun to think that Boba Fett's craze and notoriety and whole drive to even become a show comes from this scene and many other scenes only in this film because he doesn't do much. But also having seen it and watching the film yesterday, like every time he appears, I kind of want the Fett kind of thing to kind of come in. I want to retroactive the movie one more time, but this time add the Boba Fett theme every time he comes in.
What is it?
Yep.
What is it?
Boba Fett. Every time he comes in now.
Oh my gosh.
I have to say
So
that
hearing-
his vibe is much more Mando or much more Din Djarin in these movies than it is like
Boba
Book
Fett.
of Boba Fett. Like he's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
much like the cool man with no name, as opposed to like a barbarian man.
Yeah.
Like in terms of his energy, if you will, right? So
I do wonder if the changing it to Tamora Morrison's voice, which was not done that recently. Like it was okay. There's been many different versions of this film, but we're watching the 2004 DVD release, so it did happen long before like the Disney acquisition even. So, but obviously, there's got to be some people who miss the old voice, and as someone who didn't really care about, like I talked about this in my last episode with my brother who was into Boba Fett because of the toys and because he just looked so cool and sounded cool. I wonder if like replacing him with Tamora Morrison would have that same effect on people seeing this movie for the first time. Just curious. Not that like his voice sounds intrinsically less cool. I don't really
see.
know what makes people think
Well-
one sounds cooler than the other. But I will say that I associate Tamora Morrison's voice now because of Book of Boba Fett and just so much clone stuff with a goofier version of Boba Fett.
for sure. I will say that if I can find the link, I will. But there's a AI generated online fan overdub of his scenes in Empire, and I believe I don't think he actually has any lines in Return of the Jedi. But anyway, overdub of Empire with an AI generated Tem Morrison overdub. that changes the performances of his lines to be a little less light, maybe light would be like for a better word. It just makes him a little bit more stern with his delivery on some of the lines, and I have to say I think it might be better in terms of capturing kind of a happy medium between the original. What's his name? What's the first the original
Something
voiceover?
Bullock?
Yeah, Jeremy Bullock, is it?
Yeah, that's it.
Jeffrey Bullock.
Jeremy.
His original performance and Tem's performance, on the overdub, but it's this really interesting. Like it's like, oh, that's Tem Morrison's voice, but he sounds more quote unquote badass,
Yeah.
just
Interesting.
in the way he performed the lines. So
Yeah, I think I think that has more to do with it than his actual voice, like the sound of his voice.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a little bit. You can almost sense that it was like they gave him like a couple donuts and a cup of coffee in the studio on an afternoon in like Burbank, and like just banged it out in an hour, and then he left, and then they were like, okay, this is what we have. They didn't even show him any footage, and they were just like, just say
these words
he's
and-
no good to me
yeah.
dead. You know what I mean? And they didn't even get too many takes of anything. They're like, well, dude, we have him in here from New Zealand for like the afternoon, and like, and then we got to fly him back tomorrow. We're using all of our budget for this overdub on transport and craft services. We have no
Didn't
ability
they-
Expensive
to record,
donuts.
So that's almost what it's like. It's like they had limited options here.
Didn't they
this
add
is
like a
joke.
line or two? Yeah. Like even like add a line or two towards the end that wasn't in the original. I mean, you could add lines everywhere if you wanted to. You can't see his face. He could just be saying
Yeah.
things.
I think
it's
I
interesting
get that
they-
one scene where he like leans over to Darth Vader. He goes, I grew up around the water. Sorry, y'all. That's an inside Boba Fett joke.
It's okay.
Not trying to
I
date
mean-
your
He
podcast here.
hasn't gotten, he's not interested in the Hutts yet.
Right.
And this, I gotta say though, as like, I don't know, not to bring up controversies or other discussions around the things. It's like on a nerdy continuity level, I like that it's Tamara Morrison's voice. Now that we've expanded and we've seen the things and stuff like that, like it makes sense.
Oh, I like
But-
that. Yeah, I like
yeah.
that change
It's a
overall
good
for sure.
change.
But at the same time, there's part of me that is like, you kind of just erased this other actor's voice in Star Wars, and
Right.
no one will know unless you go and really dig and nerd about it like we do, or having grown up with the other films would not have known this other voice. You kind of just did that.
Yes.
So it's a weird, it's the same thing with like the Hayden Christensen Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi, when they just kind of erased the other actor and just inserted Hayden Christensen. It makes sense continuity wise, I suppose, but like, I don't know. It's a mixed feelings thing, and it's not in the end of the day, it's it's whatever.
It
There's
remains an
nothing we can do.
unresolved tension.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't side on one side or the other. I like I like all of those changes for continuity, just exactly like you said. I like Hayden Christensen, Force Ghost, etc. But now that I'm older and can understand, I guess from the actor's point of view, I guess to erase a little bit of history, it also has kind of its own little bit of sadness to that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with Jeremy Bullock. I mean, at least we got to see Anakin Skywalker, Vader, with his helmet off for a brief second. But Jeremy Bullock has he's just in a suit, so.
Right,
That could have
which
been
is
anyone.
that's what made this so easy, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you could have added that's what I'm saying. You could have added as many Tamara Morrison lines into this film as you wanted, and like wherever you could make him like just say something, you absolutely could have. Like when he's like, and in the dinner room, like before this, when Darth Vader, when it was revealed that it's been a trap kind of a thing, and Boba Fett was the one who like he could have said like "Welcome to dinner, guys," you know, or like something like silly, or like some like cool like bounty hunters like gotcha, you know, it was me, you know, like because it's a guy in a helmet, you know.
Hold on, just so that we're not
what?
doing adding to even more erasure here. The voice was Jason Wingreen. Okay?
Oh,
Jeremy Bulloch was the physical actor.
I'm really glad really glad you looked that
we're-
up before this episode came out. Woo. Okay.
That shows our knowledge and
Let's see if any people commented before hearing this part.
I mean, maybe this is a testament to this exact conversation that we literally don't even have that like in like wide circulation, like and discussion about this whole thing, is that like the voice actor literally is been removed from the movie and isn't even brought up online. Because I've heard, I mean, I know that Jeremy Bulloch tragically, you know, passed away, you know, during in 2020. And so obviously his name was at the forefront of a lot of our consciousness because we were mourning him as Star Wars fans and part of the community. But we haven't brought up Jason Wingreen in a while, you know. When this was overdubbed, there wasn't online discourse happening as widely as there is now,
right.
you know. And so if that had been overdubbed now, I'm sure there would be a bunch of people posting online like, "Let's all remember the original performer," and then you'd probably have a lot of fans that are cued into that knowledge. Back in 2004. You know, there probably wasn't a lot of like online circulation going on. Like, hey, I hear that they're overdubbing Tim Morrison on this thing. There wasn't like a Twitter going online for everyone to be like, hey, everyone remember Jeremy, or Jeffrey, you know, Wingreen here, you know?
Yeah.
Jason Wingreen.
Jason Wingreen. You know, so you don't flub his name on a podcast, you know? Anyway, so, yeah, right? So I think this is all part of this conversation is like, you know, and who knows what might happen in future media in Star Wars? And nowadays, all the stuff's on Disney Plus, and you can literally gaslight somebody and being like that was never there.
I
you know what I
complain
mean?
about
Like
that so
remember the
much.
jeans guy? The jeans guy is just not there. Like remember jeans guy who we were talking about, right? Is that guy that was in the background of an episode of season 2 of Mandalorian?
Jeans guy?
It was a crew member that they accidentally left in the back of a frame who was wearing jeans.
Oh, wow.
And it went viral the night it aired. That, you know, everyone's sharing these screenshots on Twitter being like, look at this jeans guy who was like just sticking out behind a hallway in the Mando episode. And within like hours, they updated the episode and he's just gone from the shot, right? They corrected it, right? Yeah, because you can just digitally alter him. Just get him out of there and just re-upload the episode. It's like he was never there, right? Which is like, yeah, that's what they should be able to do. It's kind of like the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones, right? It's like, as soon as somebody puts it out, you shouldn't just be screwed with your continuity and like, you know, mistakes and your whatever, not continuity mistakes, but you know, production flaws and stuff. But they could like say that they wanted to like change, you know, like maybe there's some masked character in Mandalorian season 1 that turns out to be a different character later on for some reason, like retroactively. They could go back and overdub the voice, and it was like it never existed.
I mean, they could even use Reese feature or something AI to do that theoretically. Oh, I don't like that.
So yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird.
It is weird, and it's also like, who gets to do the do-overs? People like Disney get to do the do-overs.
Yeah.
They get to
well, George Lucas at one point was able to do it, like a crazy
that's
person.
true. That's true.
Crazy artist.
Although making a revision, I feel like, isn't the same thing. And also, I wonder what he would do if his works were going directly to Disney Plus. Maybe he would be doing the same thing. But since he was living or he's still living, but even though he was making these movies in not in an era where physical media was still a thing, at least there is that. I don't know.
I feel like he would go even wilder if he was
Maybe.
at the helm during Disney Plus. I think he'd be like, you know what?
Yeah.
3 episodes, like let's change that whole thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's the kind of guy that the artist that just like the work is never over. It seems, you know. So I could see him going. And at one point in time, I think didn't he say like Star Wars should be a television medium? Right. I think the idea of having like things serialized and constantly coming out and changing.
Yeah.
And, I think would be very attractive to him. so good old Georgie.
Good old George. He's
Could
really
you imagine though? Like, okay, so the idea that we can go back and overdub, we have these separate. I mean, and a big reason we're even able to do this is because a lot of the audio and the film aren't necessarily like attached to each other. There's a lot of overdubbing that happens, like what is it called, ADR?
ADR.
Yeah, that comes in after the fact, anyways, because there's so much noise on set that they have to like recraft. Like this whole job of the sound designers and the sound editors is just recreate and make it believable on screen as where they need to. Could you imagine if they did that to music? Like in an alternate reality, if George Lucas came out and was like, you know what, I really was never a big fan of that theme. And like re-release Star Wars with like Hans Zimmer. Kind of like just could you imagine what that would be like?
Well, I mean,
like,
to be fair, he basically did do that, just didn't change composers with the victory celebration, right? Like
exactly.
Oh,
No, he did.
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
That did happen. So, bring back Yub Nub is what is
Right.
what this really is. And to the point where no one believes that Yub Nub was a thing. And when you show that to them, you're like, who made this silly song over the Ewoks? It's like, this was the original ending.
right?
Yeah, I can see.
And
yeah.
And in all of this, and what I'm saying is that I preferred Victory March anyways, or Victory Celebration
Me too.
anyways, over Yub
Yeah,
Nub.
me too.
Victory celebration.
Dude,
all
I
day.
remember. God bless him. I love him to death. He's like a reason why I'm a musician. But my my band teacher in high school, Mr. N, huge inspiration. I love him. I don't want to call him out on this podcast, but he's definitely he's I guess he's a Gen Xer.
So a Yub Nub purist.
Yeah, he's a Gen Xer. So I remember when he was like in percussion like he was my band teacher and percussion teacher in high school, and I remember him. He was like, "We're gonna do the Ewok song from Return of the Jedi for our percussion ensemble concert," and he's like, "I've arranged it for marimba ensemble."
Oh, no.
Percussion ensemble, right? And I'm all excited, and he brought in Yub Nub, and I'm like, as a high schooler, I'm like, what is this stupid song? It's like, dun 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 dun. And here's the thing about marimba ensemble, and I'll say this as a percussionist, everything sounds cheesier on marimbas. Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
okay, and for the most part, like on like when it's a Western pop song and you put it on marimba ensemble, I'm sorry, but it's just gonna sound cheesier. But so Yub Nub is somehow even cheesier when you play it on marimbas. And I just remember just being like, what is this? And then I was reminded that like the special editions exist, So, but he was like, no, this is the original. Like it was almost like he was like teaching the kids about like what the real Star Wars is, So it's pretty funny.
I kind of feel bad for him because that's his Ewok song,
Yeah, it's true.
That's his
and
heel.
no one remembers. Or at the time, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. Now we are more aware of that stuff, but at the time, I also would have been like, What is this? I don't even know what this is. I've never even heard this because it's not like the original films were widely available. They weren't.
I guess here's the thing about this whole thing is like, look at how crazily of a branched off conversation we just started because of just Boba Fett saying he's no good to me dead. Is it really worth it, George, what you've caused? That nobody can even go back and watch these movies without launching into like tributaries of thought that come about from you just being like, ugh, God, that's different, Was it worth it?
I don't
Disney
know,
released the
sparking
tapes.
tributaries of thought, I feel like, is sometimes a good thing.
Sometimes worth it.
Yeah. So,
yes.
we didn't even get to your
So,
favorite line.
moving
We
on,
paused. Yeah.
Not yet. We
Okay,
paused
let's
it.
keep going.
Best line of the whole
You
film.
will not be permanently damaged.
Lord Vader, what about Leia and the Wookiee?
They must never again leave this city.
Oh, his
This was never a
delivery.
condition of our agreement, nor was giving hand to this bounty hunter.
Perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly?
And this is
Good. It would be unfortunate if I had to leave the garrison here.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
I like Lando's delivery there. Just the emphasis on time. And like,
Yeah.
if I read that line, I'd think, this deal is getting worse all the time. But this deal is getting worse all the time. I don't.
It's getting worse all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Billy D.
So this is the beginning of 9M4 Trouble in Prison, and what we just finished was putting Threepio together. Was the name of that cue? It was very short.
Yeah.
And of course, we had it open with the Imperial March played on the low woodwinds. So it was bass clarinet and bassoon, and then echoed kind of in the horns. Yeah. Okay. Now we still haven't gotten to the line, but just shout out to James Earl Jones because just the way he elongates certain words is really makes the phrase really memorable to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
it's
lingers.
a great. Yeah, perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly is such a. You want to test me? Kind of it's great. As a great passive or aggressive like email. You know, when you want to say
How'd
one
you
thing,
think
but
that
really
in him?
like as per my email. Did you read my last thing? You know, perhaps you think
Perhaps
you're
you
being
think you're
treated
being treated
unfairly.
unfairly?
Allow me
That's
to explain.
Vader.
That's awesome. Yes. That is so true.
Okay.
Oh, yes, that's very good. I like that. Oh,
So the droids.
not right because now I can't see.
Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee.
Oh, that's much
And now
better.
you're going up.
Wait, wait. Oh, my. What have you done? I'm backwards. You flea-bitten furball. Only an overgrown mophead like you would be stupid enough.
So, let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah. Please.
So, is that the most aggro that we've seen 3PO like get like in these movies? Like,
He gets pretty.
He gets like that to R2.
I guess that's the only person we see him do that to. But I feel like to me, I remember being surprised at how like mean he was to Chewbacca. Like I you know what I mean? Like something like calls him a mophead. He calls him like you furry. I don't whatever.
Flea-bitten
I just
furball.
remember. Yeah, I was surprised that 3PO would direct that type of aggression towards. I guess that kind of means that you've gotten close to 3PO, that he starts to insult you like that, because he doesn't insult anybody else other than R2 like that, right? Like you never see him ever, like you never see him.
No,
say
that's a
that to
good point.
Luke
No, that's a
or
great
to
point. He
Han
never- he-
or to Leia. You never see him talk that way to anybody.
But he
else.
thinks that those people are his like masters more.
He doesn't feel that way about Chewbacca. You don't
Clearly
think?
not.
I mean, clearly not, right? So,
That's interesting.
so it's kind of interesting that he goes there. And I remember as a kid feeling dissonance in his character on that. I was like surprised that he would speak that way to Chewbacca, you know, because I hadn't seen him do that before. So
It is a little surprising to me, especially when he says like only an overgrown mophead, like you would be stupid enough.
right? How aggressive
He's
is
the one-
that, right?
It's I know, and it's one of those like don't bite the hand that feeds. He's fixing
Fixing
you.
him.
Right.
Don't.
Right. I mean, it's
So
very
imagine
funny.
getting
It's all
knocked out and
tongue-in-cheek.
waking up
Yeah.
like on the cutting room table. Nope, that's not what it's called. Operation table. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cutting room table. Cutting room floor.
floor exactly.
And someone is like standing over you with like a scalpel, and your guts are open and exposed. You might not know immediately that they're helping you.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
You might be like, "What is happening?" Yeah. but yeah, it is a little bit. He is a little bit out of character here. It seems. But Chewie is also laughing, so it makes me think that Threepio. I don't know. Maybe I'll bounce this question back to you. Do you think Threepio knows that he isn't taken seriously like that? Like, would it be like friends kind of saying that to each other? He's kind of, because Chewie's laughing.
It's always weird with
Is
Threepio because he like gets insulted by a lot of things, right? But he never like stands up for himself. Like even earlier in this movie, they're like turn him off, shut him up, blah blah blah, get out of here, all these things. He's like, well, my, how dare you say, like how rude, and he does that, but that's like it.
Yeah.
You read that as Chewie laughing in that
I
scene?
think I read. Well, let's hear it again.
Wait! Oh my! What have you done? I'm backwards! You sleep-eaten furball! Suddenly an overgrown mophead like you would be stupid enough.
It's because of the.
It sounds like he's like,
Yeah.
So I had never read that as laughing. I read it as panicking. Like he's like, oh my god, stop yelling at me, I'm trying, kind of thing. But I guess now that he's laughing, maybe that.
I feel like he's laughing, and then when 3PO starts hurling the insult, he's like, yeah, no.
Yeah, that's true. That's
I
funny.
feel like
That's funny.
maybe the screenplay or maybe the subtitles or something. Like I think I've seen somewhere it
say
described
Chewbacca
Chewbacca laughing, but I'm not sure where it was.
Wow.
But yeah, I can imagine. I think 3PO just knows that his word. I don't know if like friends insulting each other, but he is being like a little. I agree though. He is being a little over the top, but also Chewbacca is obviously so much more powerful than him.
Yeah.
Maybe he's in a lot of droid pain.
Yeah, maybe.
That could be too. When you're in a lot of pain and someone's trying to help you, even if they're trying to help you, you're in just pain and you're like, guys, take it out. Kind of that.
And 3PO does lash out in that way by just insulting the other people. Because he does it also with, he does it a ton with R2, especially when he's stressed.
Yes.
So let's keep listening. Speaking of timpani roll transitions.
Or timpani roll.
Yeah. And it
Brings us back to
takes us to dress.
the plot of
The stormtroopers and
Han,
Vader.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel terrible.
We hear that quite a bit throughout this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if it's called a theme or something. I know I've talked about it before. It shows up on Dagobah a lot, I think. But we have this like... this very snaky oboe flute little line. And then it goes into...
Why are they doing this?
Han and Leia.
Han and Leia's name.
You never even asked me any questions.
That's the best line in the movie.
I know.
I love that line. Because it's like, why? What the hell were they doing that for? They're just like torturing the bejesus out of him. And they didn't ask him anything. They're just like, why do you come in here and we're going to stick you with needles just because we're evil? And they didn't ask him anything. And, okay, let's talk about this, like, what's really happening. Is it that they didn't ask him any questions because Vader is mind reading him? Do you think that's what happened?
No.
Do you think that, or do you think it's literally they're just like gratuitously? Like,
I think they're
torturing
gratuitously
him?
just torturing Han, unfortunately.
Do you think they might be testing his ability to handle the carbonite? No, they don't really care.
But why? But they don't do that to Luke. So what's the point in doing that to Han? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, Luke never
The
got
whole point is that Han's the
that
guinea
far.
pig to see if it works for Luke, you know? So they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to torture Luke before they put him in carbonite. So why, like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
So what? I don't see a purpose of torturing Han outside of just like let's torture Han Solo, you know? Which
Me
is
neither.
hilarious. You
yeah,
never
as if
even
putting him-
asked me any questions.
As if putting him in carbonite is just not enough. He's not even their target. He's just their bait. So, yeah.
Right.
I also don't understand that.
Maybe that was maybe, I wonder if it was like a Boba Fett request.
Yeah.
Or a job of the, just like, yeah.
Well, he doesn't seem to be scratched or like physically ailed anyway. You know what I mean? So it's like, what did those things do to him? You know, maybe something.
I've
similar
always
to
wondered
like
that.
what Bix experienced. You know, something similar, like some type of psychological, spiritual torture or something. You know, I don't know.
It looks like they were shocking his chest or something.
Okay,
right?
maybe it's just
Like-
electrocution.
Maybe-
Yeah.
Well, when he's like getting leaned into it, he's going hot, hot, like it's hot kind of
Yeah.
a thing.
Right.
Like he's getting shocked, maybe.
And maybe he was just electrocuted, and he wasn't.
And Vader's just watching him. They're just, what is
They're
happening?
creeps, man.
Why?
What is this device
creep.
used for? Is this just like a retrofitted device, or did they
Yeah,
like
I love how it's
import
just
the
like
chair
present
in?
at Cloud City. You know.
Is this just like
Maybe
the
it's
torture
mobile.
room in Bespin? The
They wheeled it
Bespin
in.
Interrogation room.
Yeah, they probably
Hey,
wheeled it in. Amazing.
I wonder, there's probably
Just
an
to
explanation
torture Han
for what it
Solo.
is. I mean, the reason, I know this came up when we were talking about Andor, because we do have some real torture scene happening in there.
Yeah.
And it goes very differently from this. And whereas this one is like, and James, you're the one who brought this up, I think, on our Andor stream, which was Han is like yelling, and it's allowed to torture, and they didn't even ask him any questions. Versus Bix in Andor is asked a ton of questions, and it's
Right.
demonstrably not loud. Like she's given headphones and has to listen to something. I mean, her expression is still, she is still
she's
really
still-
anguished, but it's very different.
It is a very different scenario. They just got all kinds of techniques.
Yeah.
From all different eras of Star Wars torture. Yeah, very, very interesting scene. I also like how Leia's like, why are they doing this? Maybe because the three of you are like enemy numero uno, dos, and tres for the entire Galactic Empire. Maybe that's why they're doing this. Like, what? You're the general of the rebellion. That's why they're doing this. What? I mean, I get that. It's a
One of you-
romantic sentiment. Like, why are we going through this? I just want to be, it's a very romantic thing to say to your lover, but it's a little out of place considering how with it Leia is, I guess, even the most like hardened, sharpest military minds sometimes just want to be romantic for a second, So and Leia's no exception
Yeah.
to that, I guess.
And like Padme in Attack of the Clones, when they're about to go to the droid arena, it's like moments like this heighten the romance.
Yes.
Why are they doing
Yeah.
this?
Yes.
So we can escalate your love story.
That's so true.
And that's right. We
And
hear,
I think
and we
there
hear
is-
their theme. Their infamous
love theme.
And do you think that this, I mean, obviously at this point, Luke was not yet, canonically Leia's brother.
Correct.
But
yeah.
do you think that this scene purposefully mirrors the earlier scene in the movie with Luke being tended to by Leia in the
in the Bacta?
at Hoth? Leia's like
Right.
tending to him and kisses him weirdly, and then like this is now Han Solo needs to be tended to, and like, do you think that there's like a kind of a scene that like psychologically sets you up to be like, okay, they are the thing now, and this is like Han Solo winning Leia over now, like for good, because he's the one in need of some.
Well,
some
she
TLC.
kisses Luke because she's trying to piss off Han.
Piss
Yeah.
off Han, right?
And Yeah, and then they this is post Millennium Falcon kiss, and then it's he kisses her like on the forehead in Bespin at one point too before this. I again, having just watched this last night, I was like kind of surprised. Like, no, they were kind of more romantic to each other in a couple scenes than just like after the fact, when they discover.
Yeah, for sure.
They're definitely smooching on each other, and then they.
Yeah, you mean Luke and Leia?
No,
Or you mean
Han and Leia.
Yeah, for
Han
sure.
and Leia.
Yeah, I think even though the Luke and Leia sister brotherhood hadn't been established yet, I feel like this movie is at least telling us which way this triangle is going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Otherwise, that would have been. I mean, people make fun of
Leia's
it,
just
but I
like
don't
taking
think.
care of all these freaking like sloppy dudes in this movie. It's like Han's getting zapped, like Luke's getting like going out and getting like frozen like a moron in the tundra, and then later on Luke is hanging off a freaking weather vane. It's like Leia's like has to take care of these
Leia's
morons
got this.
in this. You know what I mean? It's like Jesus.
Leia's got this.
You just got what?
I mean, she's the only one
Like
that has
she has this, like the situation.
she's the only one that has it together in this whole movie. It's
Yeah.
like
And she continues that trend throughout the sequel trilogy as well.
oh yeah,
Leia has always been the rock of Star Wars.
100%.
Okay, let's continue listening.
Lando.
Okay, now Chewie's not laughing.
Get out of here, Lando.
Shut up and listen. The Vaders agreed to turn Leia and Chewie over to me.
Over to you.
They'll have to stay here, but at least they'll be safe.
What about Han?
Vader's giving them to the bounty hunter.
Vader wants us all
Now, he doesn't want you at all. He's after somebody called Skywalker.
So in the background we're hearing like bassoons doing a do 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 do, which is kind of reminiscent of like Imperial March. It sounds very Imperial to me.
Yeah.
And just Lando's whole delivery, I feel like changes here, where he's like not showboating anymore. He is sort of like, this is where his damage control starts right now. He's like, shut up and listen. He doesn't have time for all of these. He doesn't have time to go back and forth. He just needs to tell Leia what is up now.
And then Leia says Han, by the way.
Yeah, which is what Lando says too.
Yeah.
It's interesting how
It is interesting.
Han and Han.
like, is she saying that just because she's talking to Lando
Right.
and it's just on her tongue that way?
It's the Bespin accent. She's picking it up, and
Right.
as she's.
Their time was short but memorable on that in that destination. Okay, so now Lando has just revealed that Vader is after Skywalker, and
Luke.
Lord Vader set a trap for him.
And we're the bait.
Yeah, well, he's on his way.
Perfect. You fixed us all real good, didn't you? My friend.
I like that ADR there. I think that's
Yeah.
which one?
that's interesting, friendly framed. My friend, where like as he's punching him in the face, he's like, "My friend," and he's like right as he's like,
Oh, do you think that's
laying a
Andy-
punch in?
The My Friend?
Yeah, yeah. That's like not. I guarantee it almost. There's no way
Yeah.
he was delivering dialogue as he was
True,
punching someone for a stunt scene like that. Like he probably said "my friend" in a other take. And then they're like, okay, let's get a couple shots of you punching Lando. And I really doubt that they used the audio from that punch and for that. So yeah, that was definitely overlaid for sure. It's also
And it's
interesting.
nice how
that
when he
this-
says friend, it like coincides with the hit in the music.
yeah,
Yeah.
my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
What's funny is listening to this moment in the score without the dialogue or any of the sound effects or anything like that. It sounds like it's such a funny action packed moment. It goes dun 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 dun, like it's like gearing up to something like a little bit more actiony than Han Solo just smacking, just punching Lando and just having this like little moment. I don't. It just sounds a little bit like more like dramatic, like something big's gonna happen, like in like Starfight or something like that.
And you're talking about like on the soundtrack, right? Like Betrayal.
Yeah, the soundtrack by itself with like the hits and the strings rising, like.
Yeah,
It's just out of context. It's more dramatic than what we're watching in a way.
Yeah, let me see if I can find
And that just completely gets swallowed up by everything else that's happening.
I think it's after that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Justin.
That's before that.
It's
interesting. It's
the
always
shot in Solo that we talked about, actually.
Right.
It's after that. It's always interesting to hear like moments like that are very synchronized with the sound effects and the music, and then to hear it without the sound effects to see what part of it was like music and what part of it was sound effect. Sometimes I feel like they're purposely both, and so watching it in the movie, you get like even a more heightened experience of it. I can't find exactly the timestamp of where it happens, but yeah. Let me see. Well, that's Boba
In
Fett.
Trouble in Prison, it's about 149-ish.
Oh, Trouble in Prison. Oh, okay.
This isn't the Trouble in Prison orchestral track name.
Okay, Trouble in Prison. That's not on the soundtrack that I have.
It's a complete score.
Oh, I need to get that. Okay, I don't actually have that. I have the interesting. Maybe it's in my file somewhere. But anyway, way too weird. I thought I had so many tracks, but there's so many soundtracks. Oh my gosh. There's always something that I'm always going to miss, despite how thorough I think I'm being. Okay, let's go back to where we left off. Ish.
Vader's giving him to the Banya.
Okay. Clearly we already passed that. That's fine. Okay.
You fixed us all real good, didn't you? My friend.
Yep. Now all those crashes.
I've done all I can.
That is like the power of great orchestration, I feel.
Yep.
The strings are in unison, doing a very fast, like, what are they doing? It's like really fast, like triplets. And then they're like doing doubles. So it's like very fast notes that are all going up. They're kind of going, brr, brr, brr. And then it just kind of ends with the cello bass line falling into this like thing that they sustain, right?
Yeah. As they like hit the ground.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe this is Mickey Mousing slightly, but it's dramatic. It's scoring to the frame, I guess. Scoring to the.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I couldn't do better, but I got my own problems.
Now here we're about to have Leia and Han. After this. Here we go.
You certainly have a way with people.
It doesn't resolve up.
No.
It's like, yeah, it's like.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's that kind of suspense, you know.
Yeah,
Well, they're going to be separated, and
They are.
It could have been potentially for forever.
Yeah.
Potentially.
It actually almost was, right? They did this. They did this whole sequence out of a way of giving them the out of potentially not having Harrison Ford in Return of the Jedi.
Could have been
the
forever.
original idea, but so that's cool that they bring in that theme and then they leave it unresolved like that.
Yeah. Okay, now we're about to enter the carbon freezing chamber. It's industrial sounding,
Is crude, but it
squeaky.
should be adequate to freeze Skywalker for his journey to the Emperor.
Lord Vader, ship approaching, X-Wing class.
Good. Monitor Skywalker and allow him to land.
Lord Vader, we only use this facility for carbon freezing. You put him in there, it might kill him.
I do not want the Emperor's prize damaged. We will test it on Captain Solo.
It's a really complex background that they have going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very like a lot of subs going on. It's pretty, grumbles.
A lot of industrial sounds, a lot of the breathing, the hissing of pipes and stuff like that. And what is it? What are the what's the species? The little like
Ugnaughts?
like
Ugnaughts,
like trilling and stuff like that to speak and make these little critter noises.
I just want to bring this up for this plan here that they've concocted to like get Luke Skywalker. Okay, so like, just to put this in perspective here. Okay. We just watched on the Bad not to date your podcast, Anthony, but we watched on the Bad Batch like that.
Wait, I haven't seen the last episode. It's okay.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't on the last episode. It was in our last stream.
Gotcha.
That the Empire has a full-fledged starship dedicated to abducting, scooping up, and detaining the Zillo Beast. Okay, and has a tank in there dedicated to it. Yet like a couple years later, right, or whatever. I guess it's 20 years later or whatever. Darth Vader's like, I guess we could freeze him in that cargo crap. You know what I mean? This is the best thing that the Empire can think of to transport. To trick and transport Luke Skywalker they're his number one priority to the Empire. But 20 years earlier, they're we need specified equipment to scoop up this weird giant science project that we have, right? You know what I mean? There's definitely a mismatch of technology priorities here.
Yeah.
I feel like Luke might be more of a Vader priority than an Emperor priority.
Oh, and it's almost like he hasn't told the Emperor about it.
Maybe because I feel like the
You're
Emperor
right,
already, but the Emperor already knows about Luke. They had that conversation, but he wasn't bring him to me, do this thing. It's sort of Vader seems like he's just doing it.
And we find out later that Vader is trying to get Luke to overthrow the Empire. So you're right. This might be an under the radar mission that Vader's doing for himself.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad.
And not only that, if because he doesn't quite know how powerful Luke is at this point. Vader just doesn't know.
So he's just we better freeze him.
Let's just freeze him because who knows?
He might leap out.
I don't want to have to just imprison him a normal hostage. Let's just straight up freeze him.
So here are some sound design details about the carbon freeze chamber, taken from Ben Burt interviews. Okay, he says, the carbon freezing chamber is one of my most favorite interior locations in all the Star Wars films. Not only was it quite visually fascinating, but we were able to give it all kinds of character with sound. The big cranes that come down with the carbon block, all the pipes and steam and equipment is a little whistling sound that you hear when the carbon block is raised up out of the pit that was produced by taking a tiny piece of flexible water pipe and touching it to a block of dry ice.
Wow.
And when the metal touches the dry ice, it actually boils away the dry ice a little bit. That produces escaping gases, which they fly through the little pipe. This is a transcript from a spoken interview, so the sentences are very run-on. As they fly through the little pipe, made it into a little musical instrument. It was really just an accident. And then we were recording a lot of effects by playing metal against dry ice and getting squeaks and sharp musical sounds, which are also used for lightsaber hits. But out of that little, okay, I guess he's just saying the same thing in a different interview. But I don't know, have you ever played with dry ice? I definitely have.
Yeah, dry ice is crazy, and the different sounds you can get it to make is pretty wild. That's funny that he says it's one of his favorite. I don't think we've heard it yet, but we're gonna hear it in one of the later scenes. And the carbon freeze is one of my favorite Star Wars sound effects.
The carbon freeze?
It's literally, yeah. It's the claw that comes down to pick up the thing, and it gives this like kind of a thing.
That sound comes from the claw.
I'm pretty sure it's only when that claw is there, and it's funny because I remember recreating that sound for an Bad Batch season 1, and no one knew what it was from. And I'm like, am I crazy? Am I the only person? Because they use that sound in like some facility with claws and stuff like that. And I'm like, am I the only one who remembers this sound? And I had to go back. I was like, no, it is Empire Strikes Back in this scene.
Right.
Which is just funny. Yeah, it's such a great. I'm glad that it's one of his favorites too, because it's a huge. It's a fun scene.
Let's continue listening. I think it's so.
Luke is here.
Yeah. That's such a smooth, like agile transition sonically from it. It goes to that like much like Luke's theme here. First of all, harp flourish. It's like instantly the mood has lightened considerably, and the transition wasn't even that long. It like pivoted around like a one note, and of course the sound effect of the X-wing also helped. But man, let's hear that transition again.
We only use this facility for carbon freezing. You put him in there, it might kill him.
I do not want the Emperor's prize damaged. We will test it on Captain Solo.
Emperor's prize. Just like that. It takes us out of the last cue and into the next cue. Great fanfare. And here we go.
And then right back into his dad's theme music.
Yeah.
Right?
Father and son, father and son.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
I really like. We get just about every main character's motif in this little bit here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the droids.
Imperial March.
Even
the
droids.
droids. Luke and Leia, or Han and Leia. The main theme, Luke's theme, whatever you want to call it. Kind of a thing. But it is interesting too because it becomes light and bright and happy for a moment. It's like, hey, yay, the hero is here. That's one thing. But also Luke has no clue about this trap. He knows something's wrong. Right. But like he doesn't know if that's thing. So it's like kind of like bringing us into his mindset. Like, I'm here.
Totally.
I made it. Bespin.
Yeah.
Cloud City. And then
It's also visually the brightest thing we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I was just gonna
like for a couple minutes we haven't seen like everything's just been so dark in these chambers.
So this is what we go from, and then we go to this.
Hey.
It's just like, first of all, beautiful painting. Oh man.
I'm sure that
They're
must
so
be
gorgeous.
Is that a special edition with the X-wing footage here?
I actually don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not all of it.
But man, those clouds are beautiful.
Beautiful.
And this, and then it goes back, it goes right back to this. And we can hear it all happening in the music without even Yeah. It is so great. And Luke, his mindset is he's just gone through Jedi training. He is very well equipped to handle this, surely. He will do a little lightsaber thing, and it'll all be fine. And yeah, he's going to save the day, and he's ready. Yep. But he doesn't know what he's in for. And so we have like only 18 seconds left.
Now remember, Chewbacca, have a responsibility for me. Don't do anything.
There it was.
There it was.
It is very good.
Yeah. It
sounds like a really big zipper, like a giant zipper.
Yeah.
Ridiculous position. Now remember, Chewbacca, have a responsibility for me. So don't do anything foolish.
The Imperial March is slower here than usual.
Oh, for sure. They're actually marching somebody towards their potential doom, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like one of those, like, it almost sounds like one of those things where, like, the conductor will get in front of the band or the young band or orchestra, and it's like, now this is what it's like to follow me and follow the conductor who's like really thump bum bum ba ba dum.
Oh yeah.
Bum 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 ba dum. You know, trying to like teach them how to watch kind of a thing. It's like very like overly schmaltzed kind of a draw out of the theme and quick little bursts and stuff.
Yeah, if anyone listening has been in band or orchestra, you most certainly have had a few moments where your director has been conducting you and then does something unexpected and sees how many people are paying attention to this very sudden tempo change. They'll often, just to test everyone, do something really extreme.
Sure. One of these moments that make this score definitely not sound like a DAW-based score, right?
Oh. No,
right.
Absolutely.
Compose, right?
Right.
Harder to achieve this effect when
like the organic tempo fluctuations.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But being able to sit there in front of an orchestra, John Williams, with these themes, just thinking like, how many ways can I spin the Imperial March? Not just harmonically, but just now with tempo. And with these things to make it sound pompous, to make it sound dark and evil, to make it sound menacing, to make it sound diabolical, and have them all sound so different, but the same notes. You know, that's just kind of the brilliance of this score and the brilliance of having a live orchestra in front of you.
Yeah, can't agree more. And not having a click track in your ears.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at photos of the orchestra recording this, they're not even wearing headphones. They're just doing what an orchestra does, kind of just having the conductor. Or I don't know. It's so different. It's so different now. Yeah. Anyway, we're at the end of the minutes. I'm going to tell the cues, and those are... Okay, the cues from these minutes, we're putting Threepio together. That's 9M3. We have 9M4, Trouble in Prison. And then we have the beginning of 9M6/10M1, Carbon Freeze. And then the musical themes were Droids, Han and Leia, Imperial March, the main title. Why am I forgetting one of them else? Okay. Droids, Imperial March, Han and Leia, A section, the main theme, and there was one more that we were just talking about. Why can't I remember?
Luke
Luke's
Skywalker?
Theme. Yeah, Luke's theme, main theme. Ooh, and in the soundtrack, this is Betrayal at Bespin and the Carbon Freeze / Darth Vader's Trap / Departure of Boba Fett. Very long title.
Yep.
Do you all have any final thoughts about either these minutes or just the music in this film, the music and sound?
I mean, just this film is so... The music is so good, and it changed. This film was just kind of legendary in the sense of how much it like brought to the world of Star Wars, and how much is still drawn from this film, sound wise and music wise, is just kind of outstanding.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
this is this perfect sequel where it just expands. It just is such a departure in so many ways. From the original film, that it enables that world building that we now love. And just like, if this film was more so of like a similar type of sequel and like kind of followed some of the same formulas, both like narratively and score and musically and sound wise, I feel like we wouldn't even be here loving this franchise as much as we do. But I feel like this whole film is just like, I wish I was alive in 1980. I wish I could watch this film and just see what have conversations with people, because this is such a wild direction for this franchise to have gone in relation to the original Star Wars film. Like, it's so weird. It's such a weird movie. And it's so dark, and it's so it's just so. The first one was like exciting, but so like in the box in some ways, like in terms of like it just checks the fairy tale thing. You know what I mean? And this one is just so like, I mean, I know that there's tons of Campbell like hero's journey stuff that still is like really ticking all the you know, the archetypes in this movie still as well. But I don't know, this movie's just weird. It's just a weird movie, and I love it.
Yeah,
and it's my favorite. So it's my favorite.
Yeah,
and just
I would like to
get
go.
you some nice online hate. It goes like Empire, and then Last Jedi for me. So there you go, y'all.
Good old sequels.
I feel like I would have liked to have seen it for the first. Like I wish I could have experienced Star Wars as it was coming out in the theaters for sure in 77, 80, etc. But I have heard that this film wasn't well received by everyone, which is like good perspective to have.
For sure.
Yeah, because
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, especially with the reveal. Had you not had read the novelization before seeing the movie, the reveal of Luke being Vader's son wouldn't have been spoiled for you, and having that happen in theaters, you go gasp, you know, kind of a thing. I'm sure that was polarizing enough as it was.
I don't. Yeah. You obviously didn't have this meta feedback loop that you have these days, where if you like don't like a film, you start to dislike it even more once you read what everybody doesn't like about the film.
True,
right?
that's so true.
Right, like it's like you might be like, oh, I didn't really like it, but I kind of, you know, like, but you like have only your immediate friend group to talk about it with, right? But you don't have like the entirety of the internet to like have that confirm your feelings, and then for you to echo that out into the world, and then even maybe start to change somebody's mind, right? You just like went and saw movies and like talked about it amongst your friends, and that's kind of where it stopped, right? So even I do
like
see
the dislike
people
is a lot more
this,
feels more passive or just not as extreme. I could be wrong though.
It spirals.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't alive then, so I can't really say, but I have a feeling that the dislike of this film probably wasn't as viral. We just didn't have virality of that you have now. Like the dislike of the sequels and the prequels was able to go viral and then start to affect other people's opinions, you know, and much more so nowadays than it was when this movie came out. So so I think we're just living at the mercy of our instant discourse these days, you know?
Instant discourse is, that's right. That's what it is. All right, so before we end, you have one more, you have to answer the Star Wars Music Minute questionnaire yet again. And
I was going to say, they didn't even ask me any questions.
Oh my God. Okay, well, now I will ask you questions, and I'm not going to tell you your previous answers first, unless you want me to.
Okay.
So, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
Justin goes first.
James.
Okay, Justin.
I was just about to say James goes first. 3 words. I think I've said things in the past like grandiose, adventurous, orchestral, and things like that. It's narrative. I don't know. Everything just moves forward for me, kind of a thing. It's hard to describe. Even after podcasting with you all these times about Star Wars music, it's still hard to describe what Star Wars sounds like to me.
Is narrative 3 words?
Narrative.
Okay.
Yes.
That's narrative. Great. Your previous answers were grandiose, sweeping, futuristic, and pew, pew, pew.
Pew, pew, pew. Yep.
Yeah. James?
What does Star Wars sound like to me? I did not think this through ahead of time.
What does it sound like today?
There you go.
Wait, can you repeat that?
So the first one, then, and then, which is the sound that we just talked about today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Your previous answers were bum, 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 and the band batch.
Bum, bum, bum. I don't even remember saying that. Well, that's nice.
Bum, bum, bum.
That's the timpani.
Oh, that's what it was. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. No, it was also bum, 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 bum.
Oh, yeah. That's Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you're curious about today, or you want to learn more about?
Who truly, who, you know, what, like,
You can tell we've been
makes
doing this
these
for
decisions?
Who makes these decisions?
Who makes these decisions? Like, I mean, who's the one who's making these decisions of what is ADR, what is not, and to completely replace something. Like, I want to know that decision making process. Besides, continuity, and we have the money. Like, what makes you go back to really and like do the work, that kind of distribution work, to change a few things.
You mean like after the film's already been released? Or do you mean just
Right.
like any type of ADR?
Right.
Okay, after the film. Like
No,
retroactively.
after these films. Yeah,
Yeah.
retroactively change. Like what is
Who
that
greenlights that?
process? Who greenlights all of that? That's just a good question.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
keep my question relevant to our specific episode today.
Okay.
Which is, I really want to know what those industry level like conversations were like involving the overdubbing of like Boba Fett's voice and the original Emperor. And I would love to see if they like threw the original voice artist like a check. Like, just be like, hey, thanks for your work.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, what were these conversations like? Did they actually contact the original voice artist and, like, sorry, we're going to take you out of this, so you're going to have to, like change your IMDb page or something, Like, you know what I mean? I want to know
like
what
behind
I
the
wonder if
scenes,
there was.
what were the conversations like?
I also wonder, is there
Yeah.
something in the contracts of these original actors that says that, like, hey, we're allowed to change your performance at any point in time? Like, I wonder if there's got to be a Screen Actors Guild kind of thing,
Yep.
like that goes into these types of decisions that protects actors from being like replaced 10 years later in their own films, right? There's
think
got to be
there-
some type of union rules regarding some of these things, right?
I think they might be working on those now.
Right?
Or
With
I don't
all
know
the
if they
AI
have it
and
then.
stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
especially
yeah,
because of that.
that's the kind of thing I would love to know more about. Is like what is all the legalese surrounding all the industry
Yeah.
backpatting that has happened in regarding all these overdubs and changes with the special editions? Because obviously people like Sebastian Shaw got taken completely out of their scenes, other than Sebastian Shaw being obviously the decrepit old Darth Vader, but yeah, I want to know about all that stuff.
Me too. I feel like
so
we won't like the
interesting
answer.
Yeah,
so
I'm
that we
sure I
fine.
won't.
But yeah.
Yeah. Have a good
And
answer
finally, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
there. Oof, so many. I think previous answers to this, I've said like The Village was a soundtrack that I love and recommend. Lately, I think the one that I've really been getting into was the soundtrack to It Follows. Has a fantastic soundtrack.
What's
to
that?
It.
Is it a movie?
It's a horror movie that came out a number of years ago that kind of like revamped a lot of the horror genre and got very, very famous for being kind of different in this like on horrors. I'm a huge horror movie fan, and it's easy to fall into the horror movie tropes and just make a thing just to do it kind of a thing, but to really invent and really change how horror movies are being made for another turn of the genre. It Follows was definitely one of them, and the score is absolutely fantastic.
Who did it?
I think it was Disaster Piece
Really? Okay.
was the person who did it.
Disaster
will
Piece has
double-check
come
right
up
now.
on a recent episode. Interesting. Disaster Piece, It Follows.
Yeah, Disaster Piece. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
It's very good soundtrack. I recommend that. I've been really into that vibe lately.
Nice. Yeah, you said The Village and by James Newton Howard and Stranger Things soundtrack by Kyle Dixon, Michael Stein, and War of the Worlds by John Williams.
Yeah, War of the Worlds. Yeah. Good ones.
And James.
Okay. Who knows if I've said this on this show before, but I'll be cliche. I'll be like cliche and say The Shining. by Wendy Carlos.
Yeah,
I just
that's
love
a
Wendy
good one.
Carlos in general, but yeah, her work on The Shining and Clockwork Orange, pretty awesome. Early synth stuff and just being awesome. Baroque synthy stuff.
Yeah. I wish her music
major
was
part of
easier to listen
synthesizer
to.
history.
Like more available on more platforms to listen to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I got
have
a
to
bunch of
rewatch those
vinyl of
movies.
Wendy Carlos. So
Oh, you do?
Damn.
that's where you go. You got to go to record shops and find Wendy Carlos records.
So you have a record player then?
Oh yeah. Doesn't any self-respecting hipster in Los Angeles own a record player?
Do you, Justin?
Oh yeah, I got like 3, and tape machine.
Yeah.
And I got a reel-to-reel.
Does it? We're insufferable.
I don't have one.
hipsters. Okay.
You don't get brand new releases on cassette? Come on. You don't.
Okay, I'll ask you both questions later if and when I decide to get one. It's a whole thing, it's like it's a whole thing to get into. It's
It
a
is.
whole thing.
It absolutely is.
It's a money suck for sure.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah. Anyway, where can people find you all online other than the Star Wars Music Minute YouTube channel as the Band Batch talking about shows on Disney Plus?
You can find me on Instagram at JC Scheid, SCHEID. You can find my Bandcamp, Raingoat Music, at bandcamp.com or .bandcamp.com or whatever it is. Same with SoundCloud. And YouTube. I'm actually putting things on YouTube for once. You could search my name and you'll find stuff.
Yay. And James?
You can find me at James Waterman Music on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find me at just James Waterman on Twitter and YouTube, and JamesWatermanMusic.com.
Did you change that?
I think it's always been
James Waterman Music. Oh, interesting. Okay.
On YouTube, I'm just at James Waterman because it was available.
Wow.
And
Nice.
elsewhere, it is not available. There are other James Waterman.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're the only one for me.
Aw.
All right. Well, thank you for coming back on to talk about Empire Strikes Back.
Woo.
I always like talking to you too, obviously.
Can't wait for the next one.
Yeah. And the next one will be more polarizing. We'll have to talk about whether y'all will even want it. Well, no, you will. I'm going to make you. Rise of Skywalker is the next season.
Oh, all right. Let's do it.
Justin and I saw that together, actually.
We did.
Anyway, it will be interesting. I looked back at our old texts, by the way, from after we saw the movie and what we were saying back then. So we can bring that up. We can pull those up next season.
I want to see.
See how
yeah,
we
yeah.
agree with. Yeah, to
would
see
love
if we
that.
agree with those thoughts. Yeah. Anyway, listeners,
fun.
thank you for listening to another episode. I'll be back next week to talk about minutes 96 through 100, and you know where to find Star Wars Music Minute on Twitter, Instagram. Not that I post very regularly at all, but and you can join my Discord server by becoming a patron. Link will be in the show notes, and of course, come to the YouTube channel if you want to hear the four of us actually, with Christina Ward as well, do commentary on whatever new Star Wars Disney Plus show is out at the moment, unless there are multiple at a time, and then decisions have to be made, and can't do all of them. But
sometimes wrong decisions, but that's okay.
Sometimes very wrong decisions, and we can all talk about that. But yeah.
Anyway, yeah, may the Force be with you, and thanks for listening to Star Wars Music Minute.